And he says also staying for several days is not permitted. So what could he do with his daughter whom he sends to school, obviously overseas, and she stays in the dorm? If you are talking about dropping her into a school which is an Islamic school, you know that for sure. Once she's admitted to the dorm, she has a supervision, and she's living in a safe environment, and you drop her off and you pick her up, that is okay. But if you're talking about sending your daughter abroad to a non-Muslim country to acquire an education, and she lives in the dorm, and you think this is okay, that is not okay. For many reasons. Number one is a religious reason, because it is not permissible. Number two, that I personally received complaints, crying, regret, and many calls and many emails from people, from rich families who happen to send their daughters to study in Europe or here or there. And after a few years, they did not recognize them at all. Some of them abandoned their religion entirely. They're not Muslims anymore. Some of them, she got hooked up with a non-Muslim boy, and she says that they're getting married. And in Islam, there is no marriage between a Muslim woman and a non-Muslim man under any circumstances. This relationship is perceived in the Sharia as adultery. It could even be worse if the person believes that is not necessary, or the ruling is insignificant, or he's not going to respect it. Of course, these are some cases. So there is a risk, and there is a big danger. And the danger is not only for the girls, for the boys as well, because of the peer pressure, because of the effect of the society, and so on. So when you look at it, as you remember what we discussed in the beginning with regards to anatomy and studying anatomy and doing autopsy and the skeleton of the human being, and we discussed this principle of jurisprudence, which is the beneficiary ratio. You know, what is the benefit of doing so? My daughter, alhamdulillah, got her master's, and meanwhile, she lost her deen, or she lost whatever, you know, I'm talking about. So is it really worth it? I mean, alhamdulillah, in the Gulf now, there are many, many schools. Private schools is just a degree, as you all know that. Where in your country, or where you're residing, or where you're working, your daughter will go to school and come back home on a daily basis. You can supervise her, you can keep an eye on her until she safely receives a proposal and gets married. Then she moves to her husband's house. Then alhamdulillah, shukrullah, you have fulfilled your task. Up to that, doing your best, raising her up, or him, raising your children up properly until they grew up and they became independent, you have fulfilled your job. You fulfilled your task. There are two ways to do anything, the hard way and the easy way. I always prefer the easy way. And the easy way is safety and security. Some people may consider this, you're not being ambitious. Okay, whatever you say. I'm very ambitious, but only when I secure the path which I'm going through or on. I know that it is halal 100%. I don't want to risk it. I don't want to take a chance. I don't want to ruin my future, because what if I die right now? I had this conversation with somebody over 10 years ago, maybe 14 years ago. He was rich, mashallah, and he decided to send his daughter abroad. And I said, I would like to ask you one question. If you did not have this money, would you do it? I said, of course not. It costs a lot of money. This is a very prestigious school and so on. I said, okay. Consider yourself you don't have the money. I wonder why whenever Allah blesses any of us with wealth, the first thing that some of us may think about is how to disobey Allah, utilizing this ni'mah, to convert the ni'mah into a disobedience. I know that many of those who are watching me right now may not be convinced. But I'm here to represent the view of the Sharia, the Islamic view. not just to please the desire and the hawa of the viewers and say everybody is cool and everybody is fine, do whatever you like. No, I'm trying to share with you the reality of things. So this person unfortunately still did send his daughter, and it was only 2 years, and he lost her for good. Lost her because she converted. She abandoned any religion eventually. And the main reason because she got in love with somebody else, and the obstacle was the deen. That happens a lot. So keep this in front of your eyes. Whenever the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, لا يحل لامرأة تؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر أن تسافر فوق ثلاث بدون محرم منها, or even a day and night. It is not permissible for a woman who believes in Allah and in the last day to travel alone, the travel distance without a male mahram. Why do we look at the orders and the commands of Allah as some sort of burden? No, wallahi, they are not. In fact, Allah knows best. Allah the Almighty said, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. Doesn't the one who created knows best? Knows what suits his creation best, what benefits them most, and what harms them, so he warns them against it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and about this beautiful Sharia, يحل لهم الطيبات يأمرهم بالمعروف وينهاهم عن المنكر ويحل لهم الطيبات ويحرم عليهم الخبائث in Surah Al-A'raf. So every command and every order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if you detest it, if yourself does not agree to it, if you think it's like a burden or a restriction, wallahi, it is good for you. And it's not only good for Muslims, it is good for Muslims and non-Muslims. It is good for the entire society. If today's world was to adopt the law, the divine law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the way, which is known as Sharia, wallahi, everybody would live in happiness and peace. Barakallah feek.